And also, I want to point out, if anyone's curious, this is my cat.
Oh,
So my cat, I have different animals, but this is a very specific cat who is sticky to me. Normally, people get an animal, but I'm for animal to the cat.
yeah.
So I take the cat everywhere. Like unless it's a
Oh,
restaurant, I take the cat because she's very attached to me.
it's adorable. Yeah, I have had two cats, and then we only have one now. But yeah, I like cats. Cats are
I've
great.
never actually had such a cat like this who gets sticky. It's very unusual. I've never had that. The other cat doesn't care as much, so I leave the cat at
Yeah,
home
yeah. I mean, that's more of a dog
wherever I
thing.
am.
Cats are more
Mm-hmm.
tend to be more independent and at least
Yeah.
pretend not
So
to
in
care
case
if you're there
anyone
or
gets
not.
interrupted during the conversation, it's a cat.
Yeah. So now you've likened your personality to that of the character Maximus in the movie Gladiator.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Because I don't let people bring me down forever. I personally am like him in that, yeah, he temporarily lets things get to him, but then he makes it a mass lifestyle revenge plot to get back at people and stand in the arena. And when he's in the arena, he wants to face the emperor.
Yeah.
So basically, I use it as a metaphor that when I face the emperor, it's like me getting back at my greatest bullies or enemies or anyone who's been mean to me.
Yeah.
And that's my goal.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. So you've dealt with your share of doubters, those who perhaps
Mm-hmm.
might laugh at the big dreams of others.
Yeah.
For some reason, there are always people out there who that's how they get their kicks. For some reason, I've never quite understood that, but there are plenty of them. So how do you keep going in the face of naysayers and doubters?
Well, I guess anger. Some people use anger and they channel it through writing graffiti on a gas station wall, and I channel it through wanting to prove them wrong. So, as an example, one of the things I want to prove wrong is I always wanted to get Best Director because at the Oscars, Best Director is like you're the prom king. But
Yeah.
in addition to that, I always, one specific award I feel like I would never be happy if I don't win it is the Best Original Score one because that's the one people laughed at me when I was a
Hmm.
teenager or in college or any other situations where they would just basically act like it was ridiculous that I would want to win that and I should just be an actress. So, I mean, they just basically treated me like my goals were not real and I should just want to be a soap actress or something. And nothing wrong if you want to be a soap actress, but to
Right.
discredit someone's goals like they didn't want anything
Yeah, and
ridiculous.
that's one of the. It's again, that's something I've never quite understood because clearly there
Mm-mm.
have been others, throughout history who've had those dreams and accomplished them. So obviously it can be done. I don't know. Was it just something about people never thinking that somebody they know is going to do it?
But they didn't really know me. There are actually people I don't know. Like as an example, people who know me from school. When I was in junior high, I told several teachers because they would always ask me, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I would say directing, and they already were kind of skeptical. But when I mentioned the music one, and I said, "And I want to compose the music to my own movies. I study music. I love music, and I learned it on my own terms." They would just mock me and laugh hysterically, like I am telling jokes on SNL.
Oh, good lord! I mean, that's
It's
certainly
rather
not.
mean too.
Well, certainly some from a teacher. That's not something you want, especially. I mean,
No, I mean teachers are supposed to be role models
I,
to you.
I mean,
And then they're like, ha ha ha. And you're like, no, that's
good
mean.
lord. Well, you've had
Yeah.
big dreams from an early age, clearly. Was
Hmm.
that a blessing, you think, or a curse?
No, it's not a curse. I don't think any, I mean, I'm just like anyone else who wants to do things, except that on occasion people will laugh at me. And you can also add in other reasons people might laugh at someone and doubt them. It can be maybe they think somebody's black or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Mine just happens to be I was born a girl. And then they will
Yeah.
laugh that I would want to do these things that are not very girly, or at least to them, even though I don't think gender is an occupation.
No, I mean, it isn't. Do you think that's why they would say, for example, you should just want to be an actress because that's sort of the box they
Yeah.
were putting you into?
Yeah, I mean, mostly that's basically what it was because they think female occupations, and I'm kind of glad you asked because I wrote down points I could bring up in this interview
Yeah.
this morning while I was drinking tea. And one of the things I wanted to point out to people is that there's something I think is called pink business because there's pink journalism and then pink business. to me. And I always say that when I want to be a filmmaker who also composes music to their movies, my example is Peter Jackson. And I always say, I want to be like Peter Jackson if he additionally composed. And I love that Peter Jackson is a filmmaker and a businessman. And I don't want to be a businesswoman. I want to be a businessman, with the distinction being that when you think about business or filmmaking or any industry, business that I declare businesswoman / pink business is things that it's like, let's found a company related to what you look like, or let's create a Silicon Valley website that's about finding the best makeup, or how to pair, like a magazine, how to pair your work clothes with this and this and this, and your nail polish. And there's a focus on what you can look like at work as opposed to what you can do at work. That's the cat. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. And I don't want to be a part of pink business. And when people have filmmaking, there's also a side to pink business. Filmmaking, if you're a new female filmmaker, generally you either have a mumblecore or indie drama about a group of friends and fighting and boyfriends and stuff like that. Or you have a documentary or something about women's reproductive rights in a film or things like that. And I don't want to do any of that. I just, and people look at me like I'm crazy, and then they sometimes think it's very superficial, which is funny because they are the ones who are superficial, but right. And then they tell me, why would you want to make Peter Jackson type movies or animated works? And because he does both brilliantly, and in addition to being a very outstanding businessman. He and Steven Spielberg are the only true Hollywood businessmen I can think of who are also filmmakers, because it's show business, it's not show. Yeah. And anyway, with Peter Jackson, he makes amazing works, but people don't think Lord of the Rings enriches people's lives. And I always explain to people, well, it's actually based on brotherhood, and it was written during the war, and it's been adapted so people understand that you can actually change the world through your art, through reaching children and young adults and people who feel like young adults. And it's not always, let's make a cheeseball movie about women's reproductive rights, even though that's something that matters to some people. To me, I just want to change the world through that. And sometimes it's not through being a Best Picture Schindler's List winner, even though I would love to do that kind of work if given the opportunity. Not everyone, Mr. Spielberg, he did not get the opportunity to do that work until he had already made E.T. and all these other science fiction films. And to say that science fiction does not influence young people, it really does, because when I used to watch Alien and these things, I would see things through a feminist viewpoint. Now, had I watched that, that kind of stuff like women trying to have a baby and whatever, I would not have been influenced by it. But because I was a young person, I saw that feminist roles exist in science fiction, then I think that probably influenced me, and I can do that for young people or whatever it may be, the end of racism or equality. And you reach young people before they are set in stone with how they think. And you can't do that through pink businesses.
Right.
At least to me.
And there's something to be said for not beating people over the head with the point you're trying to make. I think that's maybe the failing of some of these things that are so obviously trying to do something. People tune it out, whereas if you have something with like and people who think Lord of the Rings doesn't touch lives, I mean, they certainly obviously don't know anything about the story of Tolkien. Because they certainly do, and films do that all the time. It doesn't have to be ham-handed to get its point across. And in my opinion, like I said, I think a lot of times it's more effective when it couches that in something entertaining that people can digest and take home with them, rather than just like, all right, it's another one of these preachy films I have to sit through, And
sometimes it's not preachy. It's just that a woman's first work is always going to be a group of high school friends, or something like a group of college girls finding themselves in New York. It's all that same stuff. When a woman founds a business, it's like, let's make lip gloss. It's never about let's make, Peter Jackson, if you know anything about him, he, besides making brilliant cinema, owns so many aspects of the cinematic business. So he has investments everywhere. He sells products related to filmmaking. It's not just, him behind the camera. And he also puts up money for other people's work. So that's why I always found admirable. And it's something I would like to emulate, as well as make great animated works and transitioning into live action.
So you haven't made a secret.
My glasses keep falling off, by the way. I don't know how to get them.
It's the curse of those of us who wear glasses. I have the same issue. Yeah. If I wasn't so proud, I'd get one of those straps that go around the back of the head. Look
like.
No, I know. Yeah. I can't do it, but practically speaking, it would be
one of those old sitcoms in the 80s.
right.
Like,
maybe in 30 years I can.
Scream. Yeah.
Well, you haven't made a secret of the fact that you weren't a fan of school growing up. There was actually a line in your bio that really stuck out to me. You say, once you go out to real events, the idea of a high school party comes off like filing your nails millions of times in a row. So if I'm understanding you, it seems like you're saying that you really had no time for the petty drama because you'd be getting a taste of the real world. Why do you think you developed this advanced level of maturity at that age?
I don't think it was an advanced level of maturity. I just wanted to be like Jay Gatsby when I was my teen, going out to fabulous parties.
Yeah,
and actually in my 20s, I actually still like it, by the way. It's just that now I do other stuff, but at the time I just wanted to be that way because school was so boring to me. So I didn't want to be at a high school party like this with a red cup, like super bad, trying to figure out my way,
Do you consider yourself what they call an old soul?
Yes and no, because part of me is forever going to be a really young 12-year-old, 13-year-old person. And then part of me is somebody who's very, very old. I'm a mix of both.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. I wouldn't say old or young. I'm definitely not in the middle, but definitely a bit of young and old together.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think that's how old souls stay young, is that they never lose hold of, just a bit of that, the
immaturity.
I suppose, but there's a difference between, immaturity and then still remembering what it was like to be a child. I think those are two very different things.
Well, actually, I haven't grown up partially, aside from a business sense, from the time I was probably 14, 15. I think I froze in time. Yeah. Not even joking.
Something to be said for that. So speaking of that, at 21, you were the youngest freelancer at the New York Daily News. You began journalism at 14. Can you tell us a little bit about that writing journey?
It's really hard to get work, number one. So if you want to do it, you're not going to have it as your main job unless you have some very specific connection to somebody who's going to hire you. So I freelance. And I did kind of regular freelancing. That's another point I want to bring up of why I love Peter Jackson. Is because at the same time, when I was younger, I always found out, or I always read about how he once worked at a newspaper. So he was working in the photo section. He was not a photo editor, but he was a photo person. I don't know what you would call it, assistant or something. And so I always saw myself in him, that's the trajectory I could take. I could be like him. So I used to tell people at the newspaper I could do that. But I still do it, and it's something that I think is really a good extension of my persona, because it demonstrates that theme that I have, which is you don't have to do occupations that relate to what you look like. So I always try to maintain journalism, because you don't know what I look like when you read my piece. And I had my most recent one I did was on Steven Spielberg and Guillermo del Toro and all these great people who market toys. It's my first and hopefully not last article for Variety, because I always say hopefully not last, because I really liked working there. But it was in February of this year, and I got to talk with the special effects artist and the people, well, one of them, I wish I could have fit in more, and the people who make toys based on collaborating with these artists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a really fun article, and I interviewed the director, Joe Dante from Gremlins.
Nice.
And it was really fun because, I saw that everyone who read it really liked it, and the brands really approved of it. And that made me feel good because, like Amblin put like and approved of it, and, Mr. Del Toro and all these different people really, really liked. Obviously, I did different promotional pieces too. I didn't just do the article. I did posts on my website promoting additional material with the article. And so everyone's looking like on that. And so it's always really good to get the stamp of approval from the people who are the ones you want to make happy, because sometimes journalism goes that, you can have an article and people feel sad that they were misrepresented. So I was very happy that everyone liked it.
Absolutely. You get the stamp of if a journalist gets a stamp of approval from people they were writing about, you know you did it properly, because that is an ongoing concern. Like, they never quote me correctly. They never spell my name right. They never, So why do you think it's so difficult for us as humans to be honest about what we truly want? Is it just the fear of being laughed at, or is there something deeper? Do you
Well,
think?
because people make fun of you. That's the simple answer, where they laugh at you, which is a form of making fun of you.
In the fall of 2017, you discovered Amazon Prime, and in July of 2018, your first animated short, Pizza Delivery, premiered on Prime. Can you explain the feeling of finally having something like that completed to show the world? Like, was it elation or relief, combination of the two?
No, it's not relief. I was happy because for many years I had told people I was working on learning animation, and I was going to say animated works and animation at the same time. I was, like animating my animated works, I guess, tongue twister. Okay, so I was working for many, many years on learning this from basically 2015 to 2018. And then once I did Amazon Prime, I knew I was going to end up there. I went back and redid some of the works because I felt my skills had improved so much. And now that I had place and people were actually going to watch them, it put pressure on me to make them better. And so anyway, I was really happy that people were finally able to see I wasn't just a talker.
Right.
Because many people are. If you go out to anything, lots of people will be sipping a champagne glass, like my imaginary champagne glass, like, oh, I'm a screenwriter. And they never screenwrite, or they have one project or two projects they've made over a course of a 25-year career.
Right.
And it's really ridiculous. So I didn't want to be like those people. And I do not step in front of the camera. Cat. Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm going to have to pick this up. So anyway, we did not have that issue, and people saw my work was real, and it was very exciting, but also happiness because I didn't sound like a fraud.
Right.
I know that for many years I sounded like a fraud, and now people believe that now that at this moment in time I have 3 shorts out available for people, and people know that I'm genuinely who I am and I claim to be, and I'm not just like, goofing off. Right. That's kind of my fear was for a long time.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, because in my field of writing, there are a lot of people in, books. There are a lot of people who say, I'm going to write a book, or they talk about writing a book.
And they never do. And that's like the most ridiculous thing.
No, they never do.
Or they write one book after the course of saying it for 5 years, and then in the midst of 20 years, they somehow manage to find the time. And that's the kind of what I was steering away from. And then the other point I want to bring up about my fear of pink businesses and cliches is the thing that women do. And the reason I say this is because men, when I ask them for advice, I'm talking about people I know well enough, like filmmakers and stuff, that they can tell me anything they feel. So there's nothing hidden. They say, always compare yourself to men and say, is a man doing this? Yes or no? Well, then I should or shouldn't. And the thing that women do is they pay somebody do everything because they don't want to bother understanding it. And they have a cat I'm just gonna move this cat again. I think that's the last of her interrupting me.
No, it's fine.
She's bored by now. So anyway, so women, and rather than say me learning how to animate, they would just pay somebody else how to animate, sit there, give an idea, spit out a bunch of jargon about the process and not know anything. And so filmmakers are always pushing me, or other business leaders I admire within the film community and also without being a part of film. When I ask them for advice, they always say, don't fall into that cliche. And it's particularly common in, I want to say fashion and beauty, but not necessarily. But, like you see, and I don't want to name anybody, but like say a young girl one day says, and hydroxy, whatever, and this and this. And then she's spitting out words she wouldn't have known 5 years ago. And then she barely knows how to open her mouth and talk. You know what I'm talking about? Like those types of women.
Right.
Okay. And then they're talking about all these things like anti-aging, or in case of filmmaking, special effects, and they don't know anything about special effects. And indeed, if you look at James Cameron and you look at other well-known directors, they all had a basis in learning special effects or animated works, like Walt Disney and that sort of thing. So I always wanted to be like them and not be somebody who just kind of hands it out. Because even if you one day have an animation house or a special effects house like Peter Jackson or any of these people, or like the gentleman I interviewed for my article who's outstanding with legacy effects, like, hey, hi, I love everyone at legacy effects because they do all these like Avengers and The Shape of Water and everything. Those people have a ground understanding of what is going on.
Right.
And even if they're bossing other people around, you command respect because you know what you are talking about.
Right.
And if times change, you will have at least some understanding of it. You're not going to look like a fool. You don't deal with imposter syndrome or all those things millennials talk about because you are not an imposter.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I really try hard not to be an imposter. And if I don't know something, I try to learn it. And I try to learn skills that are relevant to what I want to do, but also because in the future, when people talk to me, I want people to take me seriously. And so there's a place called the Stan Winston School, and I'm always pushing myself, saying that the day I get done with specific projects, like when I finish wrapping this first feature, I think I need to take some classes there, online, long distance, so that way I can use them in my works. And then in the future, if I'm like Peter Jackson or whoever it may be, he's my favorite, like because of his career. But
Right.
like say whoever is successful, then people will respect me. I hope
No,
that makes sense.
no, it absolutely does. And I think you're 100% right. And I think you're really smart to be approaching it that way, because anything you learn, you're going to use it at some point.
Yeah.
Discover
I
that.
mean, times change, like technology changes. And I can
Sure.
guarantee you that when Jurassic Park was going on, that Steven Spielberg was never saying, oh, hey, I studied CGI. But one of the things he did when he was young, he was a child and making his films, was he studied lighting, and he did his own like low end, very junky, but effective childlike special effects that people even today think look fancy for the era. And then like Peter Jackson was studying special effects design. Guillermo del Toro studied special effects. And he had makeup and all these things that he was doing for people. You're not talking about people who one day just plopped down on a film set and they know what they're doing.
Right.
So they can speak
Yep.
the language or at least have things necessary. James Cameron's a good example. So he was able to talk to Stan Winston, who is now dead, but he's the one who kind of pioneered all this and the special effects makeup and stuff. And he was able to say, like, I want this for Terminator 2, which you would not have been able to do if you're like this jokey women who launch lipsticks or products or whatever it is, clothing, lifestyle guru websites and things like that. And they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. No, 100%. So more recently, you've set up Lucky Pineapple Animation. Is there a project currently in the works you could tell us about?
Yeah, that's why I'm always working on multiple things at once. So when you don't see it, but when things plop out and come out on Amazon Prime, so that there's going to be one called The Homework's Revenge, which is a short I'm working on. It's a little bit different. It's kind of inspired by a parody of The Matrix, but it's actually based on a lot of real things at my school. Like, you'll see it, but when I was in 8th grade, we studied what a matrix is. I'm not even making that up. It's like for real. We studied a matrix. And that was on many homework assignments for me for at least a month, like different things we would use the matrix for. So I actually always said I'm going to do this when I get the chance, because the matrix had been out for not much, like maybe a few months, I think. I don't know, 9 months, something. So I said that I'm going to work that in when I'm older into a cartoon or a live action movie. And then the little things that really happened, like at my school, we would play movies, like a Bad Teacher. I don't know if you've seen Bad Teacher.
Yeah.
In Illinois, it's so true. I think that whoever wrote that movie was kind of an insider, because we really did have movies we would do instead of homework, and I couldn't understand anything. Why do I have to learn on my own? Because my teacher's playing a movie. And it was something that had nothing to do with whatever was going on in class at the time. Like one time we watched Dumb and Dumber, and I was trying to figure out why we were watching Dumb and Dumber. And we would watch like all kinds of stuff that didn't make any sense. And one time my teacher in 8th grade, I'm not going to say which class it is, but I had a teacher who basically told everyone he was going on a date. So he was just going to leave us and then start playing a movie. And that's actually what happened in The Homework's Revenge, is that's exactly the setup I have at the beginning before it goes into, like why math is important for young people who want to study music. And then The Arzable Texas is a feature film that is taking me, like I said, when I started making it, it was going to be a short sent to film festivals. I just didn't feel like it once I went on Amazon Prime, because I said, like, if people are going to really watch my work, I need to have one feature, and it's going to take me a while, but I'm going to redo all this work and keep some of it, but just toss all this out and start from scratch, redo everything. So I hope I can get that done this year. I've always saying I want to do this and this and this, and then my deadlines go like crunchy, and they just disappear. And they go, like when you have crunchy paper in the rain and it just turns into mush.
Right. Yeah.
Those are my deadlines, because I don't know what is predictable. Because ever since I did Amazon Prime, and I have my own page on Amazon Prime where people can watch my work, then that kind of changed all my plans, and I never saw that coming. So I'm really hoping I can get my feature this year, my first feature.
Well, Douglas Adams said about deadlines. He's like, I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they whiz by me. So you're not alone.
Well, and
you're
also
in good company.
Things come at you that you don't expect.
Yeah, sure.
That's the thing. So like, I didn't know when I was setting false deadlines for myself back then that I would be doing this, because and also I'm very happy because it forces me to realize if people are really going to watch my work, I better do a better job on this. and all my work is really low budget, by the way, because I animate with the exception of some music costs and, basics like paying people to caption it and things like that. My work is exceptionally low budget, to where even low budget people are astonished at how low budget it is. By that, I'm talking like $75 spent on a movie.
Well, you do so much of the work yourself.
150. Yeah. But the actors are, and some actors, like there's a girl I paid in sushi. And awesome. Like stuff like that. They're just so excited that they are many people come to me because they have primarily stage work. Or because they have work that doesn't represent them, that's being thrown at them as hypersexualized. And, like young guys and young women. So they're really excited to work with me because I don't sexualize them, and they would have opportunities to have a wider scope of work. So they work for free or for like sushi, or depending on what it is for me. And they also want to be on Amazon Prime.
Right. I love that story about the sushi. That's going to be in your biography one day. You know that, right?
I paid a girl on sushi. Yes. Actually, and also, if you want to know, I also got one time I get stuff from, like, I'm a foodie, and so people give me stuff and chefs. And one time I gave her, that same girl, I got something from a chef, and I gave her the gift card from the chef to split with me, because and she got a free dessert and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. That's so awesome. She definitely gets paid in some very good food. Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of writers who would work for food too. So, that's kind of an ongoing thing in the arts, it's just, you take it what you can get. So you've made a pledge to refrain from talking about politics. Why do you think it's important to stay out of that arena?
Well, can I be completely honest? I don't have a political view.
Yeah, no.
I do not want to be, okay, so one of the biggest things people do, and I'm not speaking about everyone, but I'm speaking about many people who are actors and actresses and models and that sort of thing, is if you don't really have strong political views, you fake your way to fit in with the community. So for me, I spend so much of my time, like I do have like mild, like general ideas, but I'm not somebody who's going to be a protester or an activist or any of that stuff. As I said, I would rather make a science fiction movie than a women's reproductive rights movie. And that's just me. Hate me, but I'm going to be honest, okay? I would rather learn more tonight how the, say, Aliens and the Alien franchise were made, and spend hours learning through the Stan Winston archives of Jurassic Park, whatever, than me sitting here, like with a sign and I'm going to go burn a bra, whatever. That's just me. I'm a dork and I don't have strong political views. I don't. But many people do it to be included in the clique, or to be talked about on social media, or they talk about, how dare Trump or Hillary or whoever, insert the person, Ted Cruz, say this.
Right.
And they do it for the sake of being very, what's a good way to say this, out for publicity and fame and that sort of thing. It's not with good intentions. Right. And I can tell you that I know a few people, like there's one guy I like, who's super nice, but I know from talking with him that he only gets involved with things because he gets to meet like really big deal people who he would never ordinarily meet, and it has improved his career. Okay. Right. I'm not going to diss the guy. He's doing it for marketing value, but in the process, you also alienate people and outside LA. There are also people who are Republicans and very strongly opinionated in LA. I want to say, who's an example? Angelina Jolie's dad, John Boyd. Okay. And I know people get alienated by that. And so you can never truly have a correct answer. And so I don't want to bother with it. It's not that I don't read about politics, but I'm just a kind of an outsider. I've always met politicians or politicians' kids and that sort of thing, but I'm just not involved. And I don't want to pretend to be involved for the sake of publicity, nor do I want to use it as a sort of cheap way to advance my career.
Right.
I hope that's kind of an understanding. I hope people understand when people are out in the public talking about politics, it's not because they like it.
Right.
Okay, know that. Because they're just faking their way most of the time, especially when you see young girls, you know, the type, or young guys who are like, they would rather be surfer dudes down on the beach, but they're all of a sudden at a protest. And also a lot of people, I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people don't realize that some people are paid activists.
Yeah.
So they're paid by a specific coalition, or so I don't want to be used for anyone's personal gain. That's another thing. Politicians will try to do that with you, and they will approach you. I'm not kidding. I've been approached by politicians like, can you talk about this? And I just don't want to, you know, for Democrats or Republicans or anything. I don't want my name to be attached to that. I want it to be attached to, you know, strong filmmaking, strong animation, and hopefully sweeping film scores.
Yeah. And I think you will. But the thing about politics is that there's no way to win. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what side you take. You're going to lose.
And also, people online call me all kinds of names. If I'm saying anything that's unrelated to politics, they call me either a liberal snowflake, a Trump supporter, whatever this is, whatever the trends are. And you like, say I buy a sandwich, you're a liberal snowflake. And I'm like, no, not really. I don't care. Yeah. And I'm not going to pretend that I care. Now, is that going to say, like, I don't care about any issues? No. But I mean, I don't have a strong enough opinion. I'm not going to. But my opinion of politics in America is like me being asked about carrots. Do you like carrots? Well, you know, sometimes, I guess. But I don't really. I'm not going to go march in the streets over carrots.
Right. Yeah, it bothers me a little bit because it seems like in today's political climate, people think you have to be an activist to be a good person.
Everybody. No, lots of activists. I mean, actresses are activists now because they know there's commercial gain to it. So they know that. And I'm not saying everyone is. Some people are genuine and true to their personal brands, and that's good. But many people are not. They're just doing it to be on the cover of a magazine because so-and-so is an activist for this issue. And a lot of them use, you know, like Planned Parenthood or different issues. And I know, I mean, if I'm someone who prides myself in being very dorky and geeky and intellectual, and if I don't personally have a strong enough opinion, that means so-and-so, who's definitely not an intellectual type, is not going to care.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, you can always tell the people who are doing it for a purpose other than passion because they haven't done their research and they don't know what they're talking about on either side.
Sometimes you can't because they spit things out and they're such good actors or theater actors and stuff that you don't know because they're that good. I'm not kidding. They're like such good actors.
Yeah.
In reality too.
So what? I guess, by the way, I wanted to say if there's something you want to address that I don't ask you about, please feel free to jump in because we're coming down to the end here. But I did want to ask, who is the most impressive person you've ever met?
Well, I was going to say that you don't have to answer this and say you've met someone because I've met lots and lots of people, you know, like in politics and Hollywood and Broadway people and stuff like that. But people always try to ask me about who's your female role model and things like that. And that person doesn't exist. And I'm just going to be honest and say, I don't have a person I've been floored by like that. I have people I've been impressed by, like a tinge in their messages and stuff. But my advice to people is if you don't see that person who exists to you as a role model, then you should just try to become that person. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not there right now, but I hope someday I can do it. The closest I can think is maybe Peter Jackson. I would like to be like him, or, you know, in terms of role models and stuff, but I have never seen someone who's taken a path I would like as a woman. Yeah. And then I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I admire this person, or I met this person who's famous, because I don't really admire them. I mean, I respect who they are as individuals and their personal brands, but I don't want to have that personal brand. I want to have my own path. And as I said, the closest thing I can think of is who I want to be. I would love to be Peter Jackson if he also composed like John Williams and had scores. I kind of admire Hans Zimmer,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't want to copy his career, but I do have a deep admiration and love for the guy. And let's see. I mean, I'm just trying to think of myself, like who I would want to be
Right.
like. And sometimes you have to do that. Like, well, I would like to be this person with a twist of he also does this.
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think people should look within their gender or color or nationality or anything for role models, because
Right.
that's what people do to us. They always do that to
Right.
me, like, you should be like Reese Witherspoon, or you should be like this person, and I don't want to. Nothing wrong with Reese Witherspoon. I
Right.
think I've never met her. I know people who have, and they say she's awesome, but I don't want to be like Reese Witherspoon. I want to be Peter Jackson.
Hmm.
And, hopefully pull that off.
Yeah. No, I think that is awesome. And I am no expert, but I actually do think that you've got all the makings of it and the pieces put together, and I think you're going to do really well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
hope so. I hope people watch my Amazon Prime stuff, and
Absolutely. I'll put a link
also
to it.
that like if I can someday, I mean, I'm not saying someday, like within 5 years, I would like to direct for a studio,
Mhm.
and that's my goal. So if studios want to hire me, like,
Right.
hi, hire me.
No, one day I'll be able to say she was on my podcast.
Well, hopefully more than that. Like, hopefully I taught people something. Because there are people, like, I was joking the other day, yesterday, about a specific person that now, because I know he's hung out with like a guy I know. So I was joking to my mom. I was saying that now this guy is just basically known for eating really delicious dinner rolls, and it's kind of like a mean compliment, but it's me saying like what happened to this guy who
Yeah.
was amazing, and now he's just doing that. He's just hanging out, not making movies. So I don't want to be like that. That's another thing I was going to say, that people who generally reach a certain point, once they make 8 million, whatever it is to them, then they stop making movies and live off 1 or 2 movies. I don't want to be that person.
Right.
Or say that they made 5 movies that were a big deal, and then you quit. I don't want to be that person. I'd rather be like Mr. Spielberg and keep working and working and working
Right.
till the day you die.
Yeah.
Because John Williams does that, and some other people. You don't see Hans Zimmer out on a yacht just like chilling instead of doing film scores. So that's kind of my vibe.
Just
I
sitting in
hope
the
that
park
like I
feeding
come
pigeons.
across I hope I'm genuine and how I come across, because one of my big fears is that people will always see me for who I am not. So I hope people finally get a sense of who I am.
No, I don't get a sense of falsity whatsoever, and I think you're really genuine. And like I said, I meant what I said when I think that you've got the pieces.
Well, thank you.
So I'm really excited for you. That's all I have for you today, but I don't want to leave without making sure that there's not something else you want to add to the podcast.
Oh, yes. I remember one. Okay. So I've been very proud in my career, even though I'm not a household name to the extent that Steven Spielberg is, because most people don't, face it, know who film directors are unless they follow film. Like, most people don't. So he's the only film director most people know. Maybe Scorsese. So even though I'm not at that point yet, I want to say that everything I've ever done in my career, I'm very proud that I have never done because I had a well-known spouse's name attached. There's that a person's name attached. Whoa.
Kitty, no.
Okay. Yes. This is what happens with me a lot. And that's why she's usually in another room when I'm
totally
working, when I
fine.
bring her, if I meet with people. So anyway, I'm used to, this is the truth. Like, say that you go to a magazine or you go to a, whatever it is, a party, everyone's going to be the wife of someone, the girlfriend of someone, especially, in my case, a girl, or some related, you dated someone and they gave you a job, but especially most likely you're just someone's girlfriend. So I've always been really proud of myself that whether it's me writing for a highbrow famous publication or me getting on Amazon Prime and people actually digging my movies, because at the beginning there was not a following, but now some people are slowly following my work. Anything I've ever done, film score, composing, and anything like my podcast. Now people are listening to my podcast. I wish more people would, but they are. And I don't get that curiosity, like, this is so-and-so's girlfriend, or this is Derek Jeter's ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any of that. Like, Scorsese's granddaughter, Scorsese's ex-wife. Even though I've been going out to stuff forever and ever, and I've met well-known people, I have never, been like, I'm not going to imitate it, but there are people who go like this, and like the minute there's a camera. And I'm never that person. Like, I've never been photographed at a bunch of stuff I've attended. I've just used it for networking purposes. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm just going to say it. I never took the Kim Kardashian route of like forcing myself or living off other people's names. Right. And you'll find that is so common. If you look at every single well-known woman in Hollywood or in media, in any industry, and then everything is there because of a man's name or a woman's name. Like, say she's dating a famous woman. And I've never done that. Yeah. And hope never that if, you know, like someday people look at my work and then they see me and I would like to say I'm like married 4 times. I hope not. But say like I'm married 4 times to, you know, like well-known directors and actors or whatever. I hope that that's not my case either, that people come for me and not the name associated with my name.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You're amazing. And you've created an amazing podcast today here with me. So I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us.